I paid as I could, and for a while all went well. But in time I discovered I could not use my earnings both to live upon and to pay my debts. Creditors began to pursue me to pay for my extravagant purchases, and my life became miserable. I borrowed from my friends, but could not repay them either. Things went from bad to worse. My wife returned to her father, and I decided to leave Babylon and seek another city where a young man might have better chances. For 2 years I had a restless and unsuccessful life working for caravan traders. Our 2 leaders were killed, and the rest of us were taken to Damascus, where we were stripped of our clothing and sold as slaves. I was purchased for 2 pieces of silver by a Syrian desert chief. I was subject to their will without weapons or means of escape. I wondered if I could expect pity from them. Sirah, the first wife, was older than the others. Her face was impassive as she looked upon me. The next was a contemptuous beauty who gazed at me as indifferently as if I had been a worm of the earth. The 2 younger ones tittered as though it were all an exciting joke. It seemed an age that I stood waiting sentence. Each woman appeared willing for the others to decide. So I was turned over to Sirah. I took the occasion to thank her for her intercession, and also to tell her that I was not a slave by birth, but the son of a freeman. Her comments were disconcerting to me, and I pondered much afterward on what she said. How can you call yourself a free man when your weakness has brought you to this? If a man has in himself the soul of a slave, will he not become one no matter what his birth, even as water seeks its level? If a man has within him the soul of a free man, will he not become respected and honored in his own city in spite of his misfortune? For over a year I was a slave and lived with the slaves, but I could not become as one of them. One day Sirah asked me, "Why dost thou sit in thy tent alone?" To which I responded, "I am pondering what you have said to me. Have I the soul of a man, or have I the soul of a slave? Have you a desire to repay the just debts you owe in Babylon?" she parried. "If thou contentedly let the years slip by and make no effort to repay, then thou hast but the contemptible soul of a slave. No man is otherwise who cannot respect himself, and no man can respect himself who does not repay honest debts. Does not thy great king fight his enemies in every way he can and with every force he has? Thy debts are thy enemies. They ran thee out of Babylon. You left them alone, and they grew too strong for thee. Hadst fought them as a man, thou couldst have conquered them and been one honored among the townspeople. But thou had not the soul to fight them, and behold, thy pride hast gone down until thou art a slave in Syria." 3 days later, the maid of Sirah took me to her mistress. Sirah dismissed the maid and said to me, "Tabasir, hast thou the soul of a free man or the soul of a slave? Now is thy chance to prove it. Take then these camels and make thy escape. I will say thou stole the camels and ran away while I visited my sick mother. Go thy own way, and may the gods of the desert protect thee, for the way is far and barren of food or water." I needed no further urging, but thanked her warmly and was away into the night. All that night I traveled, and all the next day, urged on by the knowledge of the terrible fate that was meted out to slaves who stole their master's property and tried to escape. The sharp rocks bruised the feet of my faithful camels, and soon they were picking their way slowly and painfully along. It was such a journey from then on as few men live to tell of. Day after day we plodded along. Food and water gave out. The heat of the sun was merciless. At the end of the 9th day, I slid from the back of my mount with the feeling that I was too weak to ever remount, and I would surely die, lost in this abandoned country. Could it be that in this peaceful quiet I faced my end? My body now seemed of little importance. My parched and bleeding lips, my dry and swollen tongue, my empty stomach, all had lost their supreme agonies of the day before. I looked across into the uninviting distance, and once again came to me the question, have I the soul of a slave or the soul of a free man? Then, with clearness, I realized that if I had the soul of a slave, I should give up, lie down in the desert and die, a fitting end for a runaway slave. But if I had the soul of a free man, what then? Why had I refused to stand my ground like a man? Why had I permitted my wife to go back to her father? Then a strange thing happened. At last I saw the true values in life. Die in the desert, not I. With a new vision, I saw the things that I must do. My debts were my enemies. But the men I owed were my friends, for they had trusted me and believed in me. I staggered weakly to my feet. What mattered hunger? What mattered thirst? They were but incidents on the road to Babylon. Within me surged the soul of a free man going back to conquer his enemies and reward his friends. I thrilled with the great resolve. The glazed eyes of my camels brightened at the new note in my husky voice. With great effort, after many attempts, they gained their feet. With pitiful perseverance, they pushed on toward the north, where something within me said we would find Babylon. We found the trail to Babylon because the soul of a free man looks at life as a series of problems to be solved, and solves them, while the soul of a slave whines, "What can I do who am but a slave?"